Lord Jesus, as we gather this morning, may we hear the songs of angels. May we hear you speak and understand your words and see Jesus by faith. In his name we pray. Do you know my text for this morning is this passage from Matthew chapter 1, verses 18 through 25, where Joseph is spoken to in a dream by an angel about the wonders of the incarnation and Jesus coming into this world. Do you know, when I read this passage this week, one phrase popped in my mind. Have you ever heard the phrase, God moves in mysterious ways? We've all probably heard that at one time or another. Is that a Bible verse? It's not a Bible verse. There is no verse that really says God works in mysterious ways. There's some passages. Paul in Romans 11 says how unsearchable are God's paths and his ways beyond tracing out. He's greater than us. And Isaiah 55 talks about his ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. But that exact phrase, God moves in mysterious ways, isn't there. The closest thing, there's a hymn, a traditional hymn from London in the 18th century, a hymn writer named William Cowper. He wrote many hymns, and he wrote one traditional hymn, and the title of that hymn is God Works in a Mysterious Way. And you know, it's interesting. I Googled that name, and that hymn came up, and I said, yeah, I've sang that hymn before. It's not on my regular repertoire, even at the traditional service, but that hymn, and there was a little story attached with that hymn. And you know, the story goes, William Cowper in London, well-to-do guy, he wrote many hymns. But one of the things he dealt with and suffered with in life was depression. And he was battling depression, but there was one day when he just couldn't take it any longer. He said, that's it, I'm going to kill myself, I'm going to drown myself. He called for a carriage to come to his house. He got in the carriage and he told the driver, take me to the Thames River. And the driver went off and took him off to the Thames River. And on the way, a dense fog started coming over London. I've never been to London, but I've heard it's foggy. It's not unusual to have a foggy day. But this fog was so severe that you look down from the carriage to the ground, 6 feet away, and you couldn't even see the ground. The driver drove around for about an hour and then stopped and said, sorry. He opened the door and he got out and he was back at home. And the driver said, couldn't find the river. Some stories have it says the driver knew what he was going to try to do and just purposely got lost and drove him back home. But the fog was so thick, he went back inside and he prayed and said, you know what? I'm ready to kill myself and I can't even find the river. And then he sat down and wrote this hymn, God Works in a Mysterious Way. Do you know, I thought of that expression as I was reading through this passage this week, because there are really some strange, mysterious ways that God speaks to Joseph. Do you know, the first thing that stands out as I was looking at is a dream. You all dream, right? How many of you remember your dreams? I seem to remember, the only way I remember a dream, if I wake up on my own, I don't remember anything I've dreamed that night. But if the alarm goes off and I'm in the middle of a dream, I'll remember what's going on. I have some, my wife and I, we get up early. The first time the alarm rings is 5 a.m. 50% of the days we both get up then, or one of us gets up and goes and makes coffee. Sometimes we hit the snooze. But if that alarm rings right when I'm in the middle of a dream, I can remember what I'm dreaming. And it happens about one time a week. And then my guess was, I said, well, maybe 1/7 of my sleep time is REM sleep, and when you're having all these dreams and activity. So it's about 16%. Dr. Eagle from the Saturday night service last night told me, he's sort of an expert who does sleep studies. He said most people are in dream state, REM stage, 20 to 22% of their sleep. Pretty close, my guess. But have you ever made a decision based on a dream? Do you know the one thing I've found is sometimes if there's something I'm putting off, I can procrastinate. Sometimes I'll dream about it and I'll say, maybe I should get about doing what I should be doing. But in this case, God speaks through this dream and does something. You know what? When I started thinking about that, it reminded me of this passage from Daniel chapter 2, and I put that in the Old Testament reading for the day. And then the book of Daniel is really about Daniel. He was a young man when the Babylonians and Nebuchadnezzar captured Jerusalem. There was Daniel, and that's his Hebrew name, and his Babylonian name was Belshazzar. His three friends, I can never remember their Hebrew names, but I always remember their Babylonian names, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Those four were taken off and they were put in the training to be wise men and a part of the court of Nebuchadnezzar. But Nebuchadnezzar was having these dreams, these wild dreams about the future, and he wanted somebody to interpret the dream, so he went to his court and said, tell me what this dream means. And all the people said, tell me your dream, I'll tell you what your dream means. Do you know what? As many times as you have a dream, you have as many interpretations of the dream as people you ask. Anybody can come up with an idea about what your dream means. Freud made a big deal about that. Oh, let's interpret your dreams. Sometimes he said it's all your mother's fault. Is that right? I'm asking our psychologist here. My Freud is just sketchy at best. So he comes, but listen to this, what he asked in the dream. He said, tell me what my dream was, and then you can interpret it. And the wise men and astrologers said, well, no, just tell us the dream, then we'll give you our interpretation. Nebuchadnezzar said to them, no, to make sure you know the interpretation of the dream, you tell me what I dreamed. And they said, we can't do that. We don't know what you dreamed. Dreams sometimes are out there. Just tell us the dream. He said, no, tell me what I dreamed, and then I know you can understand the dream. And after they refused and said nobody could do it, Daniel heard about this. And Daniel said, why is Nebuchadnezzar so angry? Why are we in such trouble? And they said, Nebuchadnezzar said, we've got to tell him his dream and then tell him the interpretation. And Daniel went to Nebuchadnezzar and said, give me some time. Maybe God will tell me what you dreamed and the meaning of the dream. And God did speak to Daniel. And Daniel went to Nebuchadnezzar with the dream, what it was, and the meaning. Here in Matthew, God had an angel speak to Daniel in a dream, and Daniel believed it. He took Mary as his wife. Do you know dreams are the first thing in this passage that made me think of God works in mysterious ways? The second was the fact of who spoke to Daniel, to Matthew in the dream, to Joseph in the dream. It was an angel. You know, I started going through all the passages about angels in the scriptures. And angels are mentioned about 300 times in the Bible. There are a lot of them happen right here, you know. There's Gabriel speaking to Mary. There's angels speaking to the shepherds in Bethlehem when Jesus was born. There's this angel, an unnamed angel, speaking to Joseph. And you know that passage that I put in Hebrews chapter 13, do not forget to entertain strangers. For in so doing, some people have entertained angels and not even known it. Have you ever talked to an angel? You may have, but not even known it happened. There have been a couple of times in weird situations of people talking to me where I think back later in the day and says, that was weird. And I wonder if it was an angel speaking. But one of the mysterious ways that God has worked, and you know, it's not the normal, it's not the everyday. But God has sent angels, and sometimes people see an angel and they drop to the floor and they're amazed and just awe of what's going on. And other times people have spoken to angels and they didn't know who they were talking to. It's just like anybody else. God does work and move and speak in mysterious ways. Do you know the third and final thing is actually what Christmas is all about itself, and it's the incarnation of Jesus. Do you know Joseph? They were engaged. They'd never been together. And his fiancée comes to him and tells him, Joseph, I'm pregnant. But it's not what you think. Did Joseph believe her? No, he didn't. Do you know, I think it's good to be a little bit critical when you think. Don't believe anything and everything you hear, because you hear a lot of strange stories. And Joseph in this passage said, you know, I don't think so at first. But after the dream, and after the angel spoke to him, and really after Jesus was born and when incredible things started happening, he began to understand the incredible event of Jesus' birth. The incarnation of God becoming man. Do you know, the other word I looked up a lot in the scriptures this week was mystery. You know, that phrase that I thought of, God works in mysterious ways. And yesterday I was thumbing through a concordance looking up all the uses of mystery. And really it's only used by two writers in the Bible, in all the scriptures. Daniel in the Old Testament, who talks about mystery, and about, because Daniel could interpret visions and dreams of the future. And mystery means a secret that's being unfolded and revealed. The other person who uses the word mystery frequently is the Apostle Paul. And what was the mystery for him? It was all Jesus. That he was the Son of God. That he would have the audacity to be called Emmanuel, God with us. That he would give his life on the cross for Gentiles, for each and every one of us. That was the mystery that unlocked everything of the Old Testament. And the promises and the prophecies of God were revealed in Jesus, his life, who he was. Do you like mysteries? Do you know there's books and shows and all sorts of things, a lot of TV shows that are mysteries nowadays, and it's sort of fun watching and trying to figure it out. When Paul thought of Jesus, he saw Jesus as the aha moment of God and his plans. And saying, wow, God works in mysterious